is connecting. Just trying to do something. What do we do? Looks like we connected there. Hello world. And it reflects back, so that obviously means the YouTube ingest stream heard something. So we got guitar levels, we got mic levels. Okay, let's begin. Memory and fondness for memories in place of actively making new ones, perhaps. Nostalgia. And by memory faults, I certainly don't mean computer memory faults. Those have caused enough headaches in our lifetimes since the 80s. And those are irrelevant to this. Although we can probably wax nostalgic about the types of computers there were in the early 80s and mid 80s, and the transition from 8 to 1632 and eventually 64 and all that as the decades have passed, and still wish we had enough control over just memory locations before the operating system had to protect everything. But that's just that's a digression for another time. Before I get going, the thing that's up on the screen here is a very interesting program called, what is it, Designer? Marvelous Designer. And I just bumped into this browsing through YouTube and saw, being Halloween coming, it's just like, well, let's look at some weird Halloween costumes for this year. You know, not that I participate, but I do find it interesting with what they come up with and the artisanship of producing, you know, different types of clothes and costumes and whatnot. How styles evolve over time. Anyway, so I come upon this young lady trying to make a Viking costume, and you know, when you see that in the thumbnail, you don't expect someone to be in a 3D designer software package. But it is. And you're basically trying to dress a 3D model of a human, what they call an avatar. And you use it with all the types of things that people who know cloth actually use. You know, there's, you know, gussets and, you know, sleeves and different types of things, and the measurements are all, but the interface is kind of a combination of a flat plane for your cloth to be cut out of, and it drapes over the 3D model, and based on the properties of the cloth that you use, type of wool, thickness of the wool, or if it's linen or it's weaved a particular way, it has certain properties that affect how the clothing renders in 3D, which is a direct analog to how it drapes over your body in a real person. And, you know, of all the 3D design techniques I thought would come to the mainstream world of designer, you know, I'm thinking engineering stuff and mechanical parts and everything from roads to houses to anything that we manufacture out of solid things. And I just kind of never thought you would apply it to clothing design. And it seems natural because of all the types of things you need a lot of waste and experimentation for, I would imagine it would be that, because you're going to cut some stuff, cobble it together with some thread or pins and see how it drapes and see how it looks. And if you need to add some extra allowances here, or depending on the measurements you take. So you come up with this whole set of rules for dealing with clothing and the pieces of clothing, and how you would sew them together. And part of the reason I know this is my grandmother was a seamstress, and she could sew anything, and she collected patterns, and there were books that kind of explained how to get the results you wanted. And so those rules were all encoded in people's heads, passed down from family members and or from the library books that you could get about design and patterns, and from what you could send away from in the back of what were called women's magazines, but which were really kind of a home economics supply chain. In the olden days, you did have to make a lot of clothes, and some people had to learn how to make shoes, and certainly 100 years before that, you had to know how to make absolutely everything from raw materials. So, we're not that far along in this industrial revolution. As horribly as we've polluted and ruined so many things, and as explosive as the population has been, we're just not too far along on the road to civilization. Anyway, so I just wanted to bring some attention to this, and it kind of ties in with that nostalgia thing, in that, in the olden days, memory and a flat drawn pattern, not to scale, with, some dimensions on it, were quote unquote good enough to get things done. And they had really good results with it. And now you have software that's as sophisticated as, movie rendering software, or, the most sophisticated CAD, doing what used to be sort of a craft. And it's amazing to me that can be encoded that way. And, well, maybe not amazing, but it's interesting that it has gotten this far. At least to me, I didn't think we'd be this far yet. Back in the 80s, when I was looking at, stick drawings of houses, one model I made a model of a house out of extruded rectangles to represent 2x4s. And, used a little tool to count up how many 2x4s there were and what their lengths were, and all that, just to get a part supply list. And, that kind of thing was like, I never heard of that before. And databases, as far as from the public point of view, were non-existent. So, anyway, what does that got to do with nostalgia? Was it better? No, but it's part of things that tend to get forgotten with the generation that depended on them. And we're probably close to a lot of that with a lot of things now. And nowhere do I see it more is in outdoor skills and outdoor, the approach to recreation outdoors. People want to bring their city with them everywhere they go. And I don't understand it, but it's pervasive, and it's overtaking the great North Woods. And I guess, as old man shouting at the clouds, there's really nothing I can do about it other than observe it and tell you all about it. But and appear like a one of those people who doesn't believe in technology. I do believe in technology, but I don't believe in motorizing everything at every scale with wheels to cart people around who should be walking. And or putting it on personal watercrafts who like to bounce up and down in waves. You do that for 30 minutes and you don't ever have to do that again for your rest of your life, unless you're going to compete in an Olympic sport for it. Maybe fun, you can have a vacation to go do it, but you don't have to own it and have it be what you do every weekend. But that would be me projecting my values on the rest of the world who doesn't share them. And I do kind of get it, but there was a time when a gravel road was good enough. It was good enough. That's how you traveled from one part of a state to another. At some point they discovered that it took too many tires. And I have stories from my grandparents, going from Lower Michigan to Upper Michigan was a 4-tire trip. So you had to make 4 tire repairs and or have, enough spare rubber or inner tubes. Or I think they were inner tubes. Maybe they were tubeless by then. I swear they mentioned inner tubes at some point, whether that was Model A or not. But I could digress again. It's not important about the state of the vehicle. It's what was good enough to get around. The pavement eventually came and the flat tires were fewer, and since it was more practical and there were gasoline stations at every new stop, everybody could do it. And they drove up north, and suddenly, in my case, up north, it could be down south or west. Those weren't gravel roads anymore, but the other roads that you went to, the really, isolated places, were either gravel or just two ruts type of thing. And those were good enough for pickup trucks and tractor type of farm implement-y types of vehicles. That's what your pickup truck was for. It had high clearance, it had a short wheelbase, put some stuff in the back, carry some logs out, or tow along a trailer and leave it at the base part of it, and then you go deeper and bring some stuff out. Of course, some of them were so rustic that it was mostly horse. The width of a horse's behind, basically, to get the logs out and dragging them. And it's not just logs, but basically anything you needed to do in the great outdoors. And that was enough. Gravel roads, it was kind of like your circulatory system. You had the main arteries, you had the smaller veins and capillaries that eventually petered out into game trails. And now that same gravel road is not suitable for a pickup truck. I don't know if you ever counted how many pickup trucks there are, but there are gazillions of them, and it's mostly the only vehicle the main manufacturers in the United States produce. Pickup trucks. And they're not really pickup trucks. They are giant 4-door sedans because they added the 4 doors, ate up the bed space, or lengthened the wheelbase so that it could have a big, long back end and have the full-size 4 doors for full-size 5-seat capacity. And those trucks can't go on gravel roads anymore. They cost $80,000. You're going to get a ding in the paint. And they may have clearance, and they could have towing power, but you're not going to take it over a bump. That would hurt it. And so what used to be a utility vehicle, or even a sports utility vehicle, remember the old Jeep Cherokees? You could take those anywhere. And certainly the smaller Jeep platform used to be one of the major off-road vehicles there ever was. And that's just no longer the case. So people take that tremendous towing capacity that they have in their pickup trucks and put on a trailer, and what do they drive onto those? Smaller vehicles that are better at handling that stuff. They're also the loudest pieces of crap you ever heard. They look as uncomfortable as hell, though I haven't sat in one. And they're basically meant for not going anywhere or doing any actual work, but for joyriding. Joyriding through the woods where all the animals live. Especially the kinds you may want to hunt, that joyriding through the trails that take you to the hidden lake. They can't even put a kayak on one of those things. They look like glorified dune buggies, and they sound like tractors. And they're unsafe. They are driven by people who I don't think need an actual license, so youngsters can drive them. And now the practice in northern Wisconsin is to put the damn things on the regular paved road with other cars going 55. And share the road with all the vehicles. Share them with, motorcycles are fine because they're achieving the same goal as a car. I just don't see any good that it does to go joyriding. Joyriding is what children do. They learn their bike, they get out of their neighborhood, they're going down to somewhere they've never been, they're riding their bike, the wind's in the air. And now these old codgers, people my age, boomers, there I say boomers, are out there in these $30,000 UAVs, utility access vehicles, which is a different thing than an all-terrain vehicle. A utility access vehicle actually is meant to bring a utility crew to a point along either a transmission line or into a small tunnel, along a tunnel, to do repairs on either piping and sewer or transmission and distribution lines. That's what they're for. That's why they made a separate class of vehicle, utility access. But now they have roofs to keep them out of the rain. They have 4 doors, so you can have 4 passengers and suspension so that people are comfortable. And no mufflers, or whatever mufflers they have. They don't really muffle anything. You can hear them coming from miles away. And that gravel road is not good enough anymore for the original vehicles. If you're a car or a do they even call them SUVs anymore? But if you're out there on the trail trying to get to your lake put your kayak in it, you're going to run into these guys, and they're going to be going 45 miles an hour, kicking up the dust, and they're going to wonder why you're on their trail, when I would wonder why the hell they even exist or are allowed to exist. And that's me just being cranky about it, but I know it takes a village, and multi-use land use is the goal of every DNR in America, so that as many people can experience the land as possible. But I would argue, unless you are you're handicapped, you don't need wheels for that. If you want wheels, take your bicycle. The gravel is fine for a bicycle. Remember when every bicycle sold in America was a mountain bike? And people would take mountain bikes on paved roads. Imagine that. It was a style choice more than it was a practical choice, but your average mountain bike handles most gravel roads just fine. And in fact, just several weeks ago, I was on one of those roads and was passed by a biker who could go faster than I could because of all the, divots and water hazards and stuff. I had to creep along. And I was happy to let him go by because he was a bicycle guy. And anyway, so there was a time, and it's not just, again, that technology. You can pick pretty much any other, maybe even guitar technology. Remember when an amplifier actually had the speaker in it? And that's all different now, and it still sounds pretty much like an electric guitar, but not that I'm complaining, because it's a lot easier to record stuff if you are inclined to. A minor. Why do we always go to A minor? I suck at improvising. So, yes, clothing, vehicles. What else is important that we could have nostalgia for? Certainly food. I mean, just the price of food nowadays is you don't even want to buy stuff to cook anymore. You would rather buy a fully fledged pre-created meal and just heat it up. Even though that's like $8 now, if you buy buy half a chicken and try to roast it yourself, you're gonna have just not a satisfying time with the quality of the outcome. And I think a lot of the recipes have been lost to time too. A good chicken paprikash or a pasty recipe for a pasty crust. That's just, if you went to go buy the ingredients, who knows how to make a pastry crust anymore? Just flour and lard. what's the right proportions? What is the consistency it should be? When you can just go buy one that's already that some machine made, and it's already encased in aluminum foil. Not that you can fold it or mold it and make a pasty out of it or cook it the right amount of time and put the right amount of salt and pepper and onion flavor. Because to do that right, you have to do it a lot. And that's what the older home economics people did. And yes, it was a role divided by genders, but by God, it was functional and way more meaningful than we give it credit for. Because, now you just have a protein bar and some sort of soda water or flavored water and call it a meal, and it's just really worthless. And not to mention the dining together factor. Not that I like to do it that often myself, but it is one of those ways to get into a state of flow of conversation that is rare to have with other people, is to take the time over a meal. And that was kind of borne out in this other experience we had at one of our favorite restaurants, where I believe the waitresses are told to have time between courses and let people have conversations. But people, they were just mad that nobody came and served them their next course as soon as they were done with their bread, And they'd be mad about it, whether they had a cocktail or not, or maybe they weren't asked to refresh their existing cocktails. I don't know, but to not be able to take out an hour and 15 minutes to have a proper, 3-course meal, possibly with a soup or a dessert on top of that. That's just ridiculous. Why would you spend hundreds? A table of 4, that's going to be $50 a piece. That's $200. It's $200. Why would you spend $200 going out and not spend at least an hour doing it? If not, just go to the grocery store and get the stuff out of the deli and just go back to your apartment and eat it. There, I think I ranted enough. But anyway, yeah. I wonder if I can find that. A marvelous designer. And I don't know how much this stuff costs, so hopefully it's not that much. And if it is, by gosh, there's probably an open source version of it somewhere. Beginner's course, the basics. Introduction for 3D artists. Honestly, I think if the patterns are reasonably modeled, you could actually probably print the patterns out and make your own cloth and make a real costume out of it. And if they can't, I'm sure somebody out there is working on it. And looks like they have their own this. Does every video need to have a thumping soundtrack? Yeah, wow. Yeah, so you can draft your patterns. Obviously, you have male and female avatars, and I guess they simulate even the stitches of types of stitches that you can use. So yeah, go check it out if you're a creative. And I guess that's all I got. Today's Monday. It's the Monday after the Friday the 13th. There was an abysmal choice of things to watch on Netflix. I'm not sure what they did to that Follow the House of Usher. It's like they're trying to cram every Poe story into one miniseries or something. Just a lot of allusions and references, but I only got through 2 episodes. I'm not sure if I'm going to finish it or not. It's just not compelling. It's kind of confusing. And the other article I did see recently was that Netflix is going to try to focus more on gaming. And the reason I go to Netflix or streaming services or watch things is to escape reality, not to engage with an alternate reality or anything. I'm content to be an observer in someone else's narrative, and I don't need to participate. I want to see how they solve problems, how they present ideas and conflicts, and resolve them. That is drama and acting and writing all balled up into one. And just to go to a gaming site is just intellectually, to me, turns my brain off, and I'm training a totally different set of skills that really don't, in the long run, I guess they really don't entertain me that much, which is the number one thing I get out of watching things. And they certainly don't inform me how to interact with the rest of the real world. Some people say that like the shooter games or the driving games, they're all realistic enough that you develop reactions and anticipate scenarios and that sort of thing in a real-time sort of way, and so it makes you a faster thinker and a less confused when presented with changing conditions. And that may well be true. And it's probably my bad for not engaging in more games to develop that side of myself, and probably why I'm so weakly developed in anything that requires spontaneity and real-time adaptation. So, but I don't want it on my entertainment platform. That's all I'm saying. Gaming is not drama. It's not thought. At least in the way I guess I think about it. So, another thing that separates me from Gen Z, I guess. So, although they seem to like a lot of the retro stuff, so maybe I don't know. What do I know? I only know myself. Barely that. And, mostly everybody I learned from is dead. So I'll be joining them, in the next 20 years or so. And so it goes on. Humanity struggles on. And by the looks of things, it may change a lot of technology, get a great understanding of how nature and reality work and interact, but you still get a bunch of apes together, and some want to be more equal than others and know how to do it with their guns and their bombs, and decide that other people's lives aren't worth living even for them, and make that decision to end hundreds and thousands at a time. And you know, for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee, man. Tolls for everybody. Whether you're in a trench or in a penthouse. Don't remember how that song goes either. I should probably start transcribing music again because it makes me happy. And blog and don't. Talk to you all later. Bye.